G'day. Today we're going to build a heart. Building a heart will be the best way to learn how our own heart works. Now, the job of the heart is to circulate blood around the body. Now, if you think that it's a pump that's going to do that in one go, then you'd be mistaken. If I was to draw a box like that, we'll call that our pump. We'll give our pump a name. We will call it ventricle. Ventricle's our pump. Now, the way our pump's going to work is it's going to contract, and it's going to contract from the bottom towards the top. When it does that, it's going to push blood out. So that's pretty straightforward. That looks like it's easy to build a heart, right? Now, it's important when it pushes blood out that it can generate the highest pressure of the entire circulatory system. I mean, if it cannot generate the highest pressure possible, there's no way it's going to be able to push blood into those blood vessels. It just won't go. See, our circulatory system is a pressure system, which means that blood will always flow from pressures of, well, from high pressure to low pressure. So right here in the arteries coming straight out of the heart, we must have high pressure blood. And so the arteries aren't necessarily going to be thick. They're going to be, especially in this area, very elasticized. There's going to be some muscle around it. And that's all to cope with the high pressure load that is coming into it and propagating the blood in a direction around the circulatory system. Okay, so our ventricle contracts, highest pressure of the entire system, pushing blood up into our high pressure arteries. Now, as a rule of the system, for the blood to circulate, for it to be a circulatory system, the pressure is continually dropping. So we're getting lower as we go around the circulatory system. So down here we've got low pressure. Here we've got very low pressure. Here we've got medium pressure. Blood will flow around the body and back to the heart. Okay. So it looks like we've done it. Straightforward, right? Let's turn this heart on and see what happens. Okay, bang, I flick the switch. Contracting from the apex up towards the blood vessels goes our ventricle. Bang! The whole thing just blew to bits. It didn't work. It should have worked, theoretically, but it didn't. The question is why? Well, I think when it contracted, it pushed blood up here like it was supposed to, but it also pushed blood out here. Now you've got high pressure here, you've got high pressure here, and you've got two high pressure systems on either end of the circulatory system. They're going to meet somewhere in the middle, and the whole thing's going to just explode. It's not going to work. Your pump just stuffed up. Okay, so we need to fix it. Well, we know that we want the blood to come out here. We've already fixed up our arteries. They're nice and thick and strong and elastic, ready to accommodate that blood. These ones aren't. These are absolutely useless. They're very thin-walled. You really don't want them ones. Okay, what we're going to try and do is, what we are going to do is we're going to seal off this door here, so the blood can't get out. I'm going to put a little valve in there. Okay, so now when I turn the ventricle on, the blood will pump up, it'll pump around, and it won't go out here during that systole, during the ventricular contraction. So I turn it on, guess what happens? Exactly the same thing. Nothing changed. This valve is useless. It's weak. It blew inside it. It's absolutely hopeless. So I've got a valve problem. I try different valves, I take them in, put them out, new ones, different designs, try and get it just right, and they keep blowing inside out. So I'm really at a tough spot right now trying to fix this. If I can only get this valve right, then the whole system should work. So what I'm going to do is, finally what I've tumbled to, came to me in a dream, was I'm going to put some tendinous cords here. They're very strong cords, very tendinous, sinewy cords. I've taken the tensile strength of them. They're not going to bust. They can withstand the high pressure system that I'm creating inside my ventricle as I contract from the apex up into those major blood vessels. Okay, so I turn it on. I'm ready to go. I turn it on. Bang! Same thing happened. It was exactly the same thing. Nothing changed. And yet, I don't know why. So when I have a look at my pump, I take it to bits, I expect to see maybe the Chordae Tendinae has all busted, maybe I've made some kind of miscalculation, but no, they're there. And they're just as tight as I made them, so I tied them down really tight. They're still tight. I can flick it and it sounds like a guitar string. The valve is intact, it didn't rupture, but it didn't work. The blood went out. I have no doubt that the blood went in here. I figured it out. This is what happened. When the ventricle contracted, it became smaller. The volume decreased. So what's going to happen to these tight little tendinous cords? Even though they're pulled tight, what's going to happen if I decrease the volume of the area they're in? They're going to become slack. And that's what happened. These guys, rather than being nice tight cords, which is the way I had them, as soon as the ventricle contracted, they became loose because they're in a decreasing volume. So now I need to come up with some type of fix to stop that from happening. If I can stop those cords from becoming loose, then I can stop that valve from getting blown inside out. I can stop the blood that I'm trying to direct out into these major blood vessels from actually going back into the circulatory system the wrong end and blowing the whole thing to hell. So, after a few more sleepless nights, again it comes to me in a dream. What I need is something that will contract as the ventricle contracts, but it contracts in the opposite direction to kind of maintain tension on it. So something that's going to continue to pull down on those cords as the volume's coming up. And of course, the one thing we know that contracts is a muscle. So I'm going to put muscles in here. Okay. Now, these muscles have a name. They're capillary. So this is the way it should work now. I turn the heart on. It contracts from the apex up towards the major arteries. As it does that, timed to coincide with that, I've installed papillary muscles that are going to contract in the opposite direction to maintain tension on these cords, these Tendinae Chordae, on these tendinous cords, thereby preventing our valve from getting blown inside out, and therefore preventing blood from flowing back into our veins, which is not what I want. Turn it on. Oh, it almost worked that time. That was better. But it wasn't perfect. Our circulatory system still didn't work. This part did work, so I'm happy. Success. But the whole thing isn't working. It's meant to be pumping blood around, and it won't do it. It won't pump. The blood just kind of sits there. When blood sits and pools, it starts clotting. I don't understand why. It should contract from the apex, the ventricle will contract, it will push up into the major blood vessels, and we should get some venous return coming in here. Why isn't it moving? And the reason is back to this valve. This valve is blocking everything. It's a door now that's shut. How's it going to push blood through a pressure gradient if right here it can't go anywhere? Where's the flow? It can't flow. If this can't flow into the ventricle, then this can't flow, then this can't flow, then this can't flow. And so forget about even talking about flow. You're going to end up rupturing your system again, which is what's happening. Oh man. So, this time, it doesn't come to me in a dream. I figure this one out reasonably quickly. What I need is, in here, some type of a collecting pouch. So, like, let's say I put a pouch on here. Okay. Now, the goal of this pouch is that when the ventricle contracts and it closes this valve, the blood is still able to move because here it can flow now and expand this little chamber, which I'm going to call the atrium. I've got now an atrium and I've got a ventricle. So, now, this is what should happen. I turn on the heart, contracts from the apex, the ventricle contracts, pushing blood out through the major blood vessels, circulates around. The back pressure here has closed and locked the valve. The Tendinae Chordae are being held taut by the papillary muscles, and the atrium is filling up. Okay, does it work? Turn it on? Yes, it does. But not as well as I thought it would. There's another problem. I'm not achieving the pressures I need. The flow is very, very sluggish. Here's the problem. Inside here, if I want the blood to flow when the ventricle expands back out again after contraction, so during diastole, then I need to create the lowest pressure of the entire system so that it flows from very low pressure into the lowest pressure. Now, if I'm creating the lowest pressure here, then here where I'm creating the highest pressure, the blood's going to flow straight back in again. And I'm going to destroy this pressure gradient which I'm holding up there by these fast beats of the heart. So it's going boom, 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 boom. And I'm just holding blood up here in a high pressure so that it can flow from high to low. But now it's flowing back in here. So what I need is another valve. And so I put a valve here. Now, when the ventricle contracts from the apex up towards the major blood vessels, it'll go through this valve, which is not tethered, so I want the blood to go through it. It goes up into the major blood vessels, and as the ventricle expands back out again, the blood will not flow back in here because it's blocked by a one-way valve. Okay? Now I need to keep the heart rate up so that this blood in here does not become stagnant, so it doesn't stop because I don't want clotting. So I'm going to need to do regular beats to keep this blood flowing and maintain a high pressure gradient right in here. Now my heart should work. I turn it on, lo and behold, it's working just fine. That is one half of the heart. The other half is basically the same, and we'll look at why we've actually got two hearts that have been sewn together. That'll be in our next lesson.